Well, the pandemic has been a stressor for management teams across the globe. How do you lead a team effectively when just about everybody's working from home? That's next on The Jeff Crilley Show.
This morning by web.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is The Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I got to tell you, as a business owner, the pandemic has been stressful. There was about 6 weeks where all of the employees at Real News PR and Real News Communications Network were working from home. And it's different when you're seeing people every day and you're talking to them at the water cooler, and then now you're doing it all by Zoom. Well, that problem has been amplified because as we're starting to see perhaps a silver lining behind this pandemic, people are still not wanting to come to work or afraid to come to work. And so this may be a new normal for the planet. To talk about that, Bart Kohnhorst, he is a leadership expert. He heads up the leadership group systems, and he has the Texas territory, which is a big territory, for Crestcom International. Bart, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. Thanks a lot. Yes, we actually have seen a lot of movement in the workplace, haven't we? We've seen a lot of different changes of patterns and things like that. I think to start with, though, I think everybody can look back and think about what did they have to do before the pandemic hit. And many of those things haven't changed. We can anchor ourselves and really get centered around our management focus and competence by knowing we still have to drive for results. We still have to identify how to negotiate effectively. We still need to be able to manage our time, but the parameters have changed. And some of the behaviors have changed.
Yes. Take me back to the early days of the pandemic, because I have to believe all the companies that you are working with is like, Bart, we don't have a playbook for this. What were you telling them?
Well, and of course we were in that same mode ourselves. We were doing in-person training classes. We were bringing in companies into rooms and doing exercises and working with media and things like that. And suddenly we couldn't do that anymore. Now, fortunately, part of our strategy and our innovation focus has enabled us to be prepared because we had already planned on doing virtual programs. But what we had planned to do in 18 months, we now had to do in actually a week. And we did it.
Wow.
And it got better over time. So perfection, first of all, was the enemy, right?
Yes.
You're right. So that's the first thing.
Well, the larger organization that you're with is extremely successful, and you told me that they just received an award?
Yeah, so Crestcom was just awarded Training Magazine's Choice Award, which I like to characterize as the Oscars of training. So definitely a tier 1 provider of solutions. So I invested in that and have the license for Texas.
Well, I applaud you because to me, Texas is probably the best state in the country, but best for business. On everybody's list. And it's an entrepreneurial-minded state where people look at a training company like yours and say, yes, I don't know everything. I need to hire some pros. So when does somebody know when they need somebody like you, Bart?
Yeah, that's a great question. We see all sorts of reasons why people engage. First of all, we've got a great diversity of companies in Texas. We've got manufacturing companies, we've got services companies, we've got tech companies, you name it. And what they all find is they have different things. If you talk about leadership is one of those topics that touches every aspect of the business. So sometimes they find that they have a gap in sort of generational differences, for example. So that needs to be filled. Sometimes there are organizational changes where an organization has a need to bring in new skill sets. But the reality is that school's never out for the pro, really. So we're always constantly out there trying to learn new ways to use what we already know and build on our skill sets by learning new things. So I would say leadership development is a constant, and we're all doing it all the time.
Well, I'm very impressed with Crestcom. There's a video that we want to show you right now.
We are the experts in leadership development. We've helped turn good managers into great leaders for over 30 years in 60 countries and 22 languages. Moving beyond traditional learning approaches and helping to meet the challenges of today's world. We deliver interactive learning experiences with subject matter experts, focusing on relationships first, measured development with results you can see. Over 1 million leaders strong, and we are just getting started. Join us.
Well, I worked in TV news, and in many of the stations that I worked in, you had a similar story. The salesperson who was really killing it got elevated to manager of the sales department, and pretty soon they were the general manager of the entire station, but had never read a management book.
Yeah, exactly. We see that all the time. Mostly people become a leader or a manager like they become a parent. Suddenly you're it. You got to do it.
Right.
So what is it that leaders do consistently when they come to the top? First of all, we know that leadership is a learned skill for, let's say 90% of the population. It's actually something we learn. And so things like driving for results, there's a lot of different things to that. Accountability is one of them. Things like understanding what the drivers are for the business. We all look at the technical skills, but what about the mindset skills, about interdepartmental collaboration, for example?
Yes.
Or emotional intelligence. That's, for example, one of the top areas that are predictive in terms of a leader's competence and capabilities and ability to grow in their role. So those are examples, I think, of some of the competencies. Now, we've put those into a set of 30 different competencies, which we put into a series of modules that we train people on. But we take them through a structured development process, and that's important.
Well, let's talk more about that. During good times, you were out and about speaking, not so much right now, but we've got some pictures that we want to show you. How many speeches would you normally do pre-pandemic?
So we actually take people through, we sign up with our clients for a whole year to start with. And so they join us monthly. And so I would do like 4 or 5 of these classes, in some weeks.
Wow.
And so that would, I'd have 60 people in the program. And we do that the same now, virtually.
That's wonderful.
We didn't lose a single customer.
That's wonderful. And we want to give you a chance to talk about the workshops that you're doing online. Let's go ahead and put up the graphic on the authentic leadership. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's actually a webinar that we did. So we do free webinars for our participants, but just generally as well, because we're passionate about really explaining what leadership is. And authentic leadership just happens to be something that came out of Harvard, actually, one of the Harvard professors. It's an iteration of servant leadership, authentic leadership, the theories of leadership. What we tend to do is take those theories and turn them into practical, usable tools and resources, and that's what we give in the program, so people can walk away and start using this right away, and not that it's some theoretical thing, that is actually something they can use in the business.
Yes. Well, I relate to this because, I look at the things I love to do and the things I hate to do. I hate to manage people. I just know that about myself. I'm a boomer. I'm the guy who would say, because I said so. And it doesn't play well with millennials and Gen Zs, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so the generational differences are, I admire the millennials and the Gen Zs. Because they will put up with certain things and not others, and we are all leaders in our own roles.
Yes.
So to me, that's a sign of leadership. But it's up to us to also to adapt to that, to create the environments where we can all be productive.
Can a old dog learn new tricks? So full disclosure, about 2 years ago, my daughter took over the day-to-day running of the company, and I just own the thing, and I get to do wonderful things like interview experts like yourself. But if you had a boomer client, and the boomer client is not good at leadership, and you're trying to educate him or her on how to be an authentic leader, are you talking them away from the the hierarchy of because I said so, this is how it has to be done?
Well, the reality is, if you're working with a business owner, they own the business,
Right.
right? Start with that. So then the ability to get them together with their teams and have conversations they wouldn't otherwise have, and then turn those into actions that they wouldn't otherwise take. So, for example, a construction firm that I work with has a very, I think, really skilled executive leader.
Yes.
But he is a boomer. And so everything flowed down. And what happened was, when they were able to flow information up more, the innovation started happening, the efficiencies in the processes started being materialized, so they were able to find ways to cut costs. And that realization, the benefits to the business, is how those changes occurred. So yes, absolutely, boomers change. They're just people like the rest of us, and I'm one, by the way.
So Bart, we're almost out of time for this segment. You've been an amazing guest. I want you to look into your camera right there and just give the audience some final thoughts.
Well, I think I would urge the audience to consider what you're doing today. Are you doing the same things over and over again? To what extent are you challenging yourselves to grow yourselves actually in your roles, and to look at really realizing the opportunity that's ahead of you? If that is the case, and you find you'd like to have a conversation around that, I would love to be one of the people that you talk to. But find a good program to help you with that, because we all need someone to help us through our own bottlenecks and barriers and speed bumps. So I'd love to work with all of you, and hopefully you've learned something from this session today.
Absolutely. Well, you've been an amazing guest. We're going to end with the website. It's crestcom.com, and you can navigate to Bart's page on the website. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I really enjoyed it. That was great.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time. You killed it.